The wind screamed across the ice plains like a living thing trying to tear the world apart. Olivia Reed pressed her gloved hand against the frozen observation window and watched the white landscape vanish into sheets of horizontal snow. Shriek winds, the colonists called them. She understood why. The sound made her bones ache. Her tablet beeped. She glanced down at the wildlife tracking grid. Most of the heat signatures had disappeared into caves and ice dens hours ago when the storm began building. Smart animals. Only the desperate or dying stayed exposed during shriek winds. Then she saw it. A single large signature, barely moving, about 2 kilometers northeast. Right where Den Site 17 was marked on her map, Olivia zoomed in. The signature was huge. Adult Glacian, definitely. But something was wrong. The creature should have been underground by now. She watched the heat bloom pulse weakly on her screen. The Glacian was lying still in the open. She activated the long-range camera and waited for it to focus through the storm. When the image finally resolved, her breath caught. The white-furred creature was enormous, even by Glacian standards. 12 feet at the shoulder, easily. 6 powerful legs splayed around her massive body. Bioluminescent markings glowed a deep red along her spine and shoulders. Distressed colors. And her front legs were bent at wrong angles, crushed under a massive slab of ice. Olivia recognized her immediately. Froststride, the matriarch they had been observing for 8 months. The most dangerous predator on Frostholm. The Glacian was staring at something. Olivia adjusted the camera angle and felt her stomach drop. The den entrance had collapsed. Tons of ice and frozen rock sealed it shut. And from the faint heat signatures her sensors picked up beneath the rubble, something was still alive down there. Cubs. Froststride had cubs in that den. Olivia grabbed her emergency comm control. This is Observation Tower 7. I need immediate rescue authorization for wildlife situation. The response crackled through static. Tower 7, identify situation. Injured Glacian at Den Site 17. Collapsed entrance with juveniles trapped inside. A long pause. Then Director Walsh's voice cut through. Negative Tower 7. Protocol forbids interaction with Glacian adults, especially mothers with young. You know the stats. 2 research teams killed in similar situations. Director, this animal is injured and her offspring are trapped. If we don't act, they'll die. That's nature, Dr. Reed. We observe. We don't interfere. Return to station immediately. That storm is getting worse. Olivia looked at her screen. The heat signatures under the ice were fading. She calculated time in her head. Maybe 2 hours before hypothermia took the cubs. Maybe less. She switched off the comm. The supply locker held emergency gear rated for shriek winds. Olivia pulled on the thermal suit, checked the heat cells, and grabbed the portable excavation torch. Her hand shook as she sealed the helmet. This was insane. This was career-ending. This might be life-ending. But she had spent 5 years studying Arctic wildlife on Earth before joining the colony mission. She had watched polar bear mothers fight through broken sea ice to reach their cubs. She had seen them sacrifice everything for their young. Intelligence and love were not human inventions. They existed wherever parents protected children. The airlock groaned as she forced it open against the wind pressure. Ice particles hit her faceplate like bullets. She could barely see 3 meters ahead. The suit's guidance system pointed her northeast. She walked into the white hell. Each step felt like moving through concrete. The wind tried to throw her sideways. Twice she fell and had to claw her way back to her feet. The distance tracker on her display counted down with agonizing slowness. 2 kilometers. 1.8. 1.5. When she was 50 meters away, she saw the shape through the storm. Froststride lay motionless. The Glacian's yellow eyes tracked Olivia's approach. Those eyes could see body heat. The predator knew exactly where she was. Olivia stopped 20 meters out. This was the moment. Glacians could cover that distance in seconds, even injured. If Froststride saw her as a threat, Olivia would die before she could scream. The massive creature shifted. Her lips pulled back, exposing teeth like ice daggers. A low rumble built in her chest, felt more than heard through the wind. Then Froststride did something that rewrote everything humans thought they knew about predators. She lowered her head, pressed her massive skull against the frozen ground, and slowly, deliberately, she stretched one crushed foreleg toward the collapsed den entrance. The gesture was unmistakable. The bioluminescent patterns along her spine shifted from red to deep blue. Submission. Request. Help them. Olivia felt tears freeze on her cheeks inside the helmet. Every instinct screamed that this was impossible. Predators did not ask prey for help. Mothers did not trust strangers with their babies. This violated every rule of nature. But nature had apparently never met a Galatian mother with everything to lose. Olivia moved forward. Each step brought her closer to those massive claws, those terrible teeth. Froststride remained motionless, watching. The blue glow intensified the den entrance. Olivia could hear them. Faint cries beneath the ice. High-pitched and desperate. The cubs were calling for their mother. And their mother had made a choice that should have been impossible. She was trusting a human. Olivia activated the excavation torch. The blue flame cut through ice like butter. She worked carefully, aware of the tons of unstable ice above. One wrong move could trigger another collapse. Behind her, Froststride made a sound, low and rhythmic, almost like a purr. Encouragement. The storm raged. The ice melted, and somewhere beneath the frozen hell of Frostholm, 3 cubs waited for a miracle that should never have been possible. The ice fought her every centimeter. Olivia worked the torch in careful patterns, melting through the collapsed entrance while monitoring the stability readings on her suit display. Red numbers blinked warnings about structural integrity. She ignored them. The crying from below had grown weaker. That terrified her more than anything. Behind her, Froststride remained motionless except for her eyes. Those yellow eyes followed every movement of the torch. Every chunk of ice Olivia cleared away. The Galatians' breathing created clouds of vapor that the wind ripped apart instantly. Olivia's calm crackled with angry static. Director Walsh demanding updates. Dr. Patel pleading with her to return. She had silenced them an hour ago. They could fire her later. Right now, 3 lives hung in the balance. The torch cut through a thick ice layer and suddenly broke into open space. A gap, barely wide enough for her arm. Olivia killed the torch and peered into the darkness below. Her helmet lights illuminated a small cave, maybe 3 meters across. And there they were, 3 small shapes huddled together in the far corner. White formatted with ice. Bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly in pale blue. They were tiny compared to their mother, maybe the size of large dogs. But those paws already showed the promise of future claws. One of them saw her light and made a sound. A weak, questioning chirp. Olivia looked back at Froststride. The massive predator had raised her head, straining to see past Olivia into the den. Her entire body trembled. Not from cold, from desperate need. "I see them," Olivia said, knowing the Galatian could not understand words, but hoping her tone carried meaning. "I'm going to get them out." She widened the opening carefully. The ice groaned and shifted. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. Olivia froze, waiting to see if the entire structure would collapse. After several heart-stopping seconds, the ice settled. The gap was barely large enough. Olivia removed her gloves, knowing the risk, and reached down into the den. The cold bit into her exposed skin immediately. She had maybe 90 seconds before frostbite set in. The nearest cub scrambled back, frightened. Olivia made soft clicking sounds, the same one she had used with Arctic fox kits back on Earth. The cub tilted its head, curious despite its fear. Behind her, Froststride made a low rumbling call. All 3 cubs immediately went still, listening. The matriarch called again. A different tone. Olivia did not need translation to understand. Trust this strange creature. Let her help. The nearest cub took a tentative step forward. Then another. It was shivering violently. Olivia scooped it up carefully, mindful of the small claws. The cub was surprisingly light, its body heat barely registering through her thermal suit. She lifted it out of the den and turned to face Froststride. This was the test. The moment that decided everything. Olivia held the cub at arm's length, clearly visible. The baby glacian muled and reached toward its mother. Froststride's eyes locked onto her offspring. Every muscle in the giant predator's body tensed. Olivia took 3 steps forward and gently set the cub down within reach of Froststride's uninjured legs. The baby immediately burrowed into its mother's fur, crying with relief that Froststride bent her massive head and nuzzled her cub. Her whole body shuddered. The bioluminescent patterns blazed bright blue. When she looked up at Olivia again, something had changed in those yellow eyes. Recognition, gratitude, trust had been given. Trust had been honored. Olivia returned to the den. Her exposed hands were already losing sensation. She grabbed the second cub more quickly. This one was bolder, grabbing at her suit with tiny claws. She brought it up and carried it to Froststride. 2 reunited. The third cub was the smallest. When Olivia reached for it, she realized why it had been quietest. Its breathing was labored. One of its legs was bent wrong. Injured in the collapse, probably, Olivia cradled it as gently as possible. The tiny creature felt cold even through her suit. Its bioluminescent patterns barely flickered. This one was in serious trouble. She brought it out and knelt beside Froststride. The massive predator saw immediately that something was wrong. Her rumble turned sharp with alarm. She nuzzled the injured cub desperately, trying to warm it. Olivia made a decision that would either save a life or end hers. She unsealed her thermal suit and pulled the small glacian inside against her body heat. The cub was freezing. Its heart fluttered weakly against her chest. The Froststride went rigid. Every predator instinct screamed danger. Another creature had taken her injured offspring. Olivia stayed perfectly still, maintaining eye contact. She placed one hand over the cub, feeling its weak breathing, warming it. Protecting it, Froststride stared at her for what felt like an eternity. The wind howled. The storm battered them. And a massive predator decided whether to kill or trust. Finally, the glacian lowered her head again. Accepting, trusting. Olivia sealed her suit with the cub inside. She could feel it beginning to warm up, its heartbeat growing stronger. She gathered the other 2 cubs and placed them against Froststride's uninjured side where her body heat could reach them. "I need to get help," Olivia said, pointing back toward the station. "For all of you. Your legs need treatment. They need proper shelter." Froststride watched her stand, made no move to stop her. Olivia began the long walk back through the storm. Inside her suit, the small injured cub had stopped shivering. It made a small sound, almost like a purr. When she glanced back, Froststride was still watching. The blue glow of her markings was visible even through the white wall of wind and ice. By the time Olivia reached the station airlock, she had been suspended from duty. Director Walsh himself stood waiting, fury radiating from every line of his body. She did not care. Inside her suit, a tiny alien heart beat strong and steady. That was worth any consequence. 3 weeks of silence felt like 3 years. Olivia spent her days confined to quarters, filling out incident reports and waiting for the formal hearing that would decide her future. Dr. Patel smuggled her meals and quiet support. Director Walsh avoided her completely. The injured cub had survived. Medical had stabilized its leg and kept it warm for 6 hours before Olivia managed to slip away during a shift change and return it to the ice fields. She had found Froststride waiting exactly where she had left her, as if the glacian knew Olivia would come back. The reunion had been brief. The cub had scrambled to its mother with joyful cries. Froststride had touched her massive nose to Olivia's helmet once, gently, before disappearing into the darkness with her family. That had been 22 days ago. The station's long-range sensors showed no sign of the Glacian family. They had vanished into the deep ice territories where humans rarely ventured. Olivia tried not to think about them, tried to focus on her defense for the hearing, tried to accept that she might be sent back to Earth on the next supply ship. But late at night, she found herself at her window, searching the ice plains for a glimpse of blue, luminescent glow. The alarm woke her at what passed for dawn on Frostholm. Not her personal alarm, the station-wide perimeter breach warning. Olivia was at her window in seconds. Other colonists crowded the corridors, confused and alarmed. Security teams rushed past with weapons ready to eye in the gray morning light. She saw them defrost stride, stood 50 meters from the main airlock. All three cubs flanked her, significantly larger now than when Olivia had pulled them from the ice. Behind them, the rest of their family group lingered. 10 more adult Galatians, watching and waiting. And at Froststride's feet lay something massive. A frost swimmer, one of the huge fish-like creatures that lived in the deep ice channels. It was easily 300 kilograms of prime meat, more than the station usually harvested in a week. What the hell is that thing doing? Director Walsh's voice echoed down the corridor. He arrived at the observation deck, still pulling on his jacket. Why isn't security engaging? Because they're not attacking, Dr. Patel said quietly. He stood at another window, tablet in hand, recording everything. Look at the body language. The bioluminescent patterns. They're displaying submission behaviors. Submission? They're apex predators. Who just brought us food? Patel zoomed in on the frost swimmer. That's a gift. Classic bonding behavior seen in intelligent social species. Olivia pressed her hand against the glass. Froststride was looking directly at the observation deck. At her. The Galatian's markings glowed, steady blue point. One of the cubs broke away from its mother and bounded toward the station. Security tensed. The cub reached the outer wall and rose up on its back legs, pressing its front paws against the reinforced panels. It peered through the transparent sections, searching. That's the injured one, Olivia whispered. The smallest. I can tell from the markings. The cub spotted her and made an excited chirping sound. It bounced in place, then looked back at its mother as if to say, I found her. Over the next hour, the station watched in amazement as the Galatian family refused to leave. They settled in the snow, waiting. The cubs played near the walls, occasionally touching the glass. Froststride remained still, patient. They're not going anywhere, Patel said. Not until Olivia responds. Director Walsh turned to her. His expression was complicated. Anger's still there, but something else too. Uncertainty. What do they want? Permission, Olivia said. They're asking if this is acceptable. If we accept their gift. If we accept them. That's absurd. They're animals. Animals don't bring tribute, Patel countered. Animals don't wait for social acknowledgement. Director, we're witnessing first contact protocol. They're initiating diplomatic relations. With Dr. Reed. With humanity. Through Dr. Reed. Walsh stared out at the Galatians. At Froststride, who had not moved in over an hour. At the cubs, who played with the innocent joy of children everywhere. At the massive gift of food that represented significant effort and generosity. What do you recommend, Dr. Reed? Olivia had not expected that question. She thought for a moment, watching the smallest cub draw patterns in the snow. Let me go out there. Alone. Unarmed. Accept their gift properly. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. Director, they could force their way in here if they wanted. Those walls won't stop 12 Galatians working together. But they're not attacking. They're asking. There's a difference. Walsh struggled with the decision for several minutes. Finally, he nodded. 5 minutes. Any sign of aggression, and we pull you back immediately. Olivia suited up in record time. The airlock felt like a portal to another world. When it opened, the cold hit her even through the thermal gear. The Froststride rose to her full height as Olivia approached. 12 feet of muscle and claw. The other Galatians shifted, alert but not aggressive. Olivia stopped beside the frost swimmer. She knelt and placed both hands on it, making her acceptance clear. Then she looked up at Froststride and lowered her head in the same gesture the Galatian had shown her 3 weeks ago. Thank you. I accept. I understand. Froststride rumbled, a deep sound of satisfaction. She stepped forward and lowered her massive head until her nose nearly touched Olivia's helmet. A moment of connection, of mutual respect. The smallest cub could not contain itself any longer. It rushed forward and pushed against Olivia, nearly knocking her over. Olivia laughed and steadied herself, running her gloved hands over the cub's soft fur. The bioluminescent patterns danced with happiness. The other cubs joined in, curious and playful. They sniffed her suit and made questioning sounds. Olivia felt tears on her face. This was impossible. This was wonderful. This was everything she had dreamed xenobiology could be. From that day forward, Frostride's family visited the station regularly. They brought gifts. They allowed observation. They taught humans the rhythms of life on Frostholm. And three cubs grew up believing that humans were friends, not food. That trust was stronger than instinct. That nature's rules could evolve when compassion bridged the gap between species. The storm warnings came during dinner shift, 2 months after Frostride's first visit. Olivia was sharing a meal with Dr. Patel when the alert screens flickered to emergency red. Shriek wind formation, Patel read from his tablet. But the magnitude readings are wrong. This can't be right. Director Walsh's voice boomed through the station intercom. All personnel to emergency stations. We have a Category 7 storm approaching. Repeat, Category 7. This is not a drill. Olivia felt her blood run cold. The worst storm in station records had been Category 5. That one had damaged 3 observation towers and killed 2 people caught outside. Category 7 was supposed to be impossible on Frostholm. Supply ship is inbound, Walsh continued. ETA 40 minutes. All non-essential personnel prepare for immediate evacuation. The station erupted into controlled chaos. People rushed to quarters to grab essentials. The supply ship crew sent constant updates. The storm was building faster than any model predicted. Olivia found Walsh in the command center, surrounded by screens showing apocalyptic weather data. "I'm staying," she said. He looked at her like she had grown a second head. "Dr. Reed, this storm could tear the station apart. We're evacuating everyone who isn't critical infrastructure." "Then I'm critical. Someone needs to monitor the glacian populations. They're not just animals anymore, Director. They're potential allies. Maybe even friends." Walsh started to argue, then stopped. Over the past weeks, he had watched the relationship between humans and glacians grow. Trading knowledge for knowledge. Gifts for gifts. The glacians had shown them thermal vents that could provide geothermal power. In return, humans had shared their medical technology when a glacian elder fell ill. "Fine," he said finally, "but you stay in the reinforced sections." "That's an order." The supply ship arrived in 32 minutes. The storm hit in 35. Olivia had seen shriek winds before. This was something else entirely. The entire station groaned under the assault. Lights flickered. Structural alarms wailed. The wind did not scream. It roared like a living beast trying to devour them. She was in the observation deck when the east wing failed. The explosion of shattering reinforced panels sounded like a bomb going off. Olivia was thrown to the floor. Emergency bulkheads tried to seal, but the pressure differential was too great. 3 sections of the east wing were suddenly exposed to negative 80-degree temperatures and winds that could strip flesh from bone. "East wing breach," someone screamed over the comm. "Multiple casualties. 3 trapped in section E7. We can't reach them." Walsh's voice cracked with desperation. "The connecting corridor is gone. Life support is failing in that section. They have maybe 10 minutes." Olivia ran to the window. The storm outside was a solid white wall. Nothing could survive out there. Not in suits. Not in vehicles. Nothing. Then she saw movement through the chaos. Massive shapes emerging from the white hell. Not running from the storm. Running toward it. "Oh my God!" Patel breathed beside her. He pressed his face against the glass. "Are those the glacians?" Olivia whispered. Frostride led them. 12 adult glacians charging through wind that should have frozen them solid. Their bioluminescent patterns blazed bright blue, visible even through the storm. Behind them came more. Families Olivia had never seen before. 20 glacians. 30. 40. They reached the east wing breach and did something that made Olivia's mind struggle to process what she was seeing. The glacians formed a wall. Bodies pressed together, creating a barrier against the wind. The largest ones positioned themselves directly in the storm's path, taking the full brunt of the assault. Others moved to the sides, creating a tunnel, a protected space in the middle of hell itself. "They're making a windbreak," Patel said, awe thick in his voice. "A living windbreak." Olivia grabbed the comm director. "The glacians are at the breach." They're creating shelter. What? That's impossible. I'm watching it happen. Send rescue teams now. Walsh did not hesitate. Emergency teams rushed through the station toward the damaged sections. Olivia pulled on a suit and ran with them. The wind inside the breach corridor was still brutal but manageable, because 40 glacians were absorbing the storm's fury. Olivia could see them through the torn walls, massive bodies straining against wind forces that should have killed them. Some were bleeding where flying debris had hit them. None of them moved. They held the line. The rescue team reached the trapped personnel in 4 minutes. All 3 were hypothermic but alive. The rescue crew worked frantically to stretcher them out, while the Galatians maintained their impossible shield point. One of the trapped researchers was Dr. Chun, a young scientist who had always been terrified of the Galatians. As they carried her past the breach, she looked out at the wall of white fur and glowing blue patterns. "They're saving us," she whispered through chattering teeth. "What?" Olivia looked through the gap and found Froststride. The matriarch stood at the center of the living wall, taking the worst of the wind. Ice crusted her fur. Blood ran from a gash on her shoulder where a piece of debris had struck her. But her eyes found Olivia's, and in them was something clear and undeniable. "Because you would do the same for us." The evacuation took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of Galatians fighting a storm that humans had fled from. When the last researcher was clear and emergency bulkheads finally sealed the breach, Olivia watched the Galatians release their formation and disappear back into the white chaos. The storm raged for 6 more hours. When it finally passed, Olivia was the first outside. She found them in a sheltered ice valley a kilometer from the station. Exhausted, injured, but alive. All of them alive. 2 Galatians had broken legs. 5 had deep cuts from debris. All of them were covered in ice and blood. They had risked everything to Froststride raised her head as Olivia approached. The smallest cub limped to her side. Even injured, even exhausted, they had come when humans needed them. Olivia knelt in the snow and placed her helmet against Froststride's massive head. No words needed. The message was clear that we are not predator and prey. We are not human and alien, that we are something new. Something the universe has never seen before, that we are friends. The Galactic Council arrived 6 weeks after the storm. 3 ships carrying representatives from 17 different species, all wanting to see the impossible thing happening on Frostholm. Olivia stood in the makeshift diplomatic chamber they had constructed, watching alien dignitaries file in with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disbelief. The Zenari delegate, a being that looked like walking crystal, kept its sensory organs fixed on the observation windows where several Galatians rested peacefully near the station. "This is unprecedented," the Zenari said, its voice like wind chimes. "We surveyed this world 40 years ago. The apex predators were deemed too dangerous for cohabitation. Our team lost 7 members to those creatures. With respect," Director Walsh said carefully, "perhaps your team approached them wrong." The Tholian representative, a being of flowing liquid metal, rippled with what might have been laughter or offense. "You suggest we provoke them? We are experienced diplomats. We have made contact with hundreds of species, but none of them evolved like humans did," Dr. Patel interjected. He pulled up holographic displays. "Most spacefaring species evolved as either predators who dominated their worlds or prey who developed technology to escape predation. Humans are unique. We evolved alongside predators, not running from them, not dominating them, living with them. Coexistence through mutual respect," Olivia added. "It's built into our history. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We learned to share territory with bears and big cats. We understood early that intelligence exists in other species and that connection is possible across the divide." The Zenari's patterns flickered skeptically. "Pretty words. But we need evidence that these creatures are more than well-trained pets." "They're not pets," Walsh said firmly. "They're allies, partners, and they have something to say to you themselves." The chamber doors opened. Every alien representative went still. Froststride entered, walking slowly on her 6 powerful legs. The smallest cub, now nearly full-grown, stayed close to her side. Behind them came three more adult Galatians that Olivia did not recognize. Elders from deep territory families, judging by their size and the complexity of their bioluminescent patterns. The Galatians settled in the center of the chamber. Froststride's yellow eyes swept across the assembled aliens, and Olivia could have sworn she saw calculation in that gaze. The matriarch was evaluating them just as they evaluated her doctor. Patel activated the translation system they had been developing. It was crude, converting Galatian subsonic vocalizations into text, but it worked. Froststride spoke. Her rumbling voice filled the chamber. The translator flickered to life. You came to our world once before. You brought weapons and fear. You saw only monsters. The Zenari representative shifted uncomfortably. The humans came with curiosity. When my cubs were trapped, dying, a human risked her life to save them. Not for gain, not for alliance, because she understood that a mother's love transcends species. That was the moment we knew humans were different. The translation paused as Froststride made a complex sound. When it resumed, Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. You ask if we are intelligent. We have watched the stars since before your ancestors built their first ships. We understand physics. We craft tools. We have language and art and philosophy. But we chose to live simply in harmony with our world. That does not make us lesser. It makes us wise. One of the elder Galatians spoke next. For generations, we watched species come and go from our sky. They took samples. They studied us like insects. Some tried to capture us. Some tried to kill us. We learned that intelligence often comes with cruelty. Then humans arrived. Froststride continued. They observed from a distance. They respected our territory. And when the moment came, one of them proved that courage and compassion could exist in the same heart. We tested them after that, watching, waiting, seeing if it was a fluke or something deeper. It was deeper, the third elder rumbled. Humans understand what you have forgotten. Strength is not dominance. Intelligence is not superiority. Survival is not a solo journey. They remember what it means to be part of a world instead of masters of it. The chamber fell silent. The Tholian representative rippled thoughtfully. You speak of testing. What exactly did you test? We watch how they treated our young, Froststride explained. How they responded to our gifts. Whether they met respect or with attempts to control. We brought our cubs near their walls and watched to see if they would try to capture them. They did not. They let them play. The smallest cub made a soft sound. Froststride touched her nose to its head gently. We sent injured family members near their observation posts to see if they would study our suffering or offer aid. They brought medicine. We left food near their doors and waited to see if they would take without giving. They always reciprocated. Every test, they chose connection over conquest. The Zenari's patterns swirled in a way that suggested deep thought. And now? What do you want from this council? Recognition, one of the elders stated. We are not animals. We are people. This is our world. Humans have earned the right to share it. Others have not. We ask that you protect our territory from those who would exploit it. And in return, the Tholian asked, we offer our knowledge of this world, our ability to survive its harshest conditions, our partnership with humans as example to the galaxy that coexistence is possible when approached with humility and respect. The council members looked at each other. Olivia held her breath. This will require deliberation, the Zenari finally said. But I will be honest. What I have witnessed here challenges everything we thought we knew about first contact protocols. Perhaps it is time we learned from humanity's example. Froststride's bioluminescent patterns glowed steady blue. Satisfaction. Hope. After the council adjourned, Olivia found the matriarch resting near the observation deck. The smallest cub was curled against her side, watching human children play in the recreation area through the glass. You were amazing in there, Olivia said softly. Froststride made a sound that the translator rendered as, we spoke only truth. The question now is whether they have the wisdom to hear it. They will, Olivia said. You made them see that intelligence wears many faces. That civilization is not defined by technology alone. The cub chirped and pressed its nose against the glass. On the other side, a human child pressed back, giggling. The young understand naturally, Frost Stride rumbled. They have not learned to see differences as dangers. Perhaps there is hope for all of us yet. The vote came through 3 months later. Unanimous. The Galactic Council granted Frostholm protected status as homeworld of an emergent sentient species. The Glacians were officially recognized as people, not wildlife. Mining operations were banned. Tourism was restricted. The planet belonged to those who had always called it home. Olivia stood on the newly expanded observation platform, watching the celebration below. Human children and young Glacians played together in the specially designed habitat that straddled the line between station warmth and natural cold. The 3 cubs, now almost full adults, supervised with patient amusement as smaller versions of both species tumbled through the snow. Strange how fast things change, Director Walsh said, joining her at the railing. He had surprised everyone by requesting permanent assignment to Frostholm. 6 months ago, we thought they were monsters. Now look at them. They were never monsters, Olivia replied. We just cannot see past our own fear. Below, Frostride emerged from the ice fields with a procession of elders. They carried something between them, carefully balanced. As they drew closer, Olivia recognized it as an intricate sculpture carved from blue ice. The detail was breathtaking. It depicted a human figure kneeling beside a Glacian, their heads touching. The moment of first trust. A gift for the council chambers, Walsh said, reading from his tablet. Froststride wants it displayed so other species can see what is possible when fear gives way to faith. Olivia felt her throat tighten. She's turning this into a symbol. She already has. We're getting reports from all over the galaxy. Other colonies encountering species they dismissed as too dangerous. But now they are trying human approaches. Patience. Respect. Seeing individuals instead of threats. Is it working? Walsh smiled. On 3 worlds so far, including one where the local predators are even more dangerous than Glacians. But the human colonists there remembered what happened here. They extended hands instead of weapons, and the predators responded. Olivia watched the smallest of Frostride's cubs bounding through the snow with a human girl about 10 years old. They were racing, and from the cub's deliberately clumsy movements, it was letting the child win. The girl shrieked with laughter. You know what the xenobiologists are calling it? Walsh continued. The Frostholm effect. This fundamental shift in how we approach first contact. All because you refused to let 3 cubs die. It was not about refusing. It was about seeing a mother who needed help and responding the only way that made sense. Any human would have done the same. That's exactly the point, Dr. Reed. Any human would have. But apparently, we're the only species who thinks that way. Every other civilization either dominates through force or avoids conflict entirely. We are the first who consistently choose the middle path. Connection, partnership, family. Dr. Patel appeared with 2 steaming mugs. Real coffee, imported at ridiculous expense, but worth it on days like this. The cultural anthropology team just sent their final report, he said. Want to hear the conclusion? Do I want to? Olivia asked, taking the mug gratefully. They say humans are the only species that evolved understanding one critical truth. Strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. We survive by forming packs with wolves, by learning from birds and fish, by seeing other species as teachers instead of competition. That capacity for cross-species empathy is unique in known space. Until now, Walsh added, the Glacians learned it from us, and they're teaching it to their young. Within a generation, Frostholm will produce citizens who grew up seeing humans as family. That changes everything. Below, Frostride had reached the platform. She looked up at Olivia and made a subsonic call that the translator barely caught. Come down. We have something to show you. Olivia descended to meet her. The ice sculpture was even more beautiful up close. The carver had captured every detail. The human's posture showing both fear and determination. The Glacian's expression of desperate hope. The moment when nature's rules bent. This is for the council, Froststride rumbled. But we made something else. For you. The smallest cub, no longer really small, stepped forward. In its mouth, it carried a small object wrapped in soft moss. It placed it carefully at Olivia's feet. She unwrapped it with shaking hands. Inside was a piece of carved bone, polished smooth and etched with bioluminescent markings. The patterns matched those that glowed on Glacian fur. A name, Olivia realized. They had given her a Glacian name. It means bridge walker, Froststride explained. One who crosses the spaces between. One who sees beyond difference to the truth underneath. This is who you are to us. To all Glacians. The first human we trusted. The one who showed us that trust was possible. Olivia could not speak. She held the carved bone against her chest and felt the weight of what it represented. Not just friendship between individuals, but the promise of something larger. A new way forward for species across the stars. The youngest cubs, both Glacian and human, had stopped playing to watch. They sensed something important was happening, even if they could not fully understand it yet. But they would. They would grow up in a world where cooperation across species was normal, where trust was the default instead of the exception. The council members are already discussing expansion, Walsh said quietly. They want to establish protocols based on the Frostholm model. Patience, observation, respect, letting other species define contact on their terms instead of ours. It will not work everywhere, Olivia cautioned. Some species truly are incompatible. But now we will know the difference, Patel countered, between those who choose violence and those who simply did not know another option existed. That alone is revolutionary. Froststride made a deep rumbling sound. Contentment. She lowered her massive head until her nose touched the top of Olivia's head. A gesture of affection that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Nature did not break its rules the day we trusted you, the Glacians said. Nature evolved, as it always has, as it always will. We chose to see beyond instinct. You chose to see beyond fear. Together, we wrote new rules. Better rules. Rules built on hope instead of survival alone. The gas giant rose above the horizon, casting Frostholm in shades of purple and blue. The children, human and Glacian, resumed their games. Elders from both species sat together, sharing stories through translators that grew more sophisticated each day. Olivia looked at the bone name marker in her hands. Bridgewalker. She had walked across an impossible divide and found friendship on the other side. And now, across the galaxy, others were following, building their own bridges, writing their own stories of trust. Nature had not broken its rules. It had simply revealed a truth humans had always known, that the strongest bonds are forged not through dominance, but through the courage to extend a hand into darkness and trust that something good might reach back. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humans, with their strange capacity for cross-species empathy, were teaching it to love.